is the co-founder and chairman of Infosys Technologies Limited. He was the founder chairman of UIDAI, which a lot of us refer to as our Aadhaar card source that we've probably got in our pockets right now. In the rank of a cabinet minister, Mr. Nilekani has co-founded and is the chairman of XStep, a not-for-profit effort to create learner-centric technology-based platform to improve basic literacy and numeracy for millions of children. Mr. Nilekani received his bachelor's degree from IIT Bombay. Well, yes, it was Bombay at that time. It's Mumbai now. Fortune magazine conferred with him with Asia's Businessman of the Year 2003. In 2005, he received the prestigious Joseph Schumpeter Prize for Innovative Service in Economy, Economic Sciences and Politics. Important to mention here that in 2006, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan. He was also named the Businessman of the Year by Forbes Asia. Time magazine listed him as one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2006 and 2009. Foreign Policy magazine listed him as one of the top 100 global thinkers in 2010. He won the Economist Social and Economic Innovation Award for his leadership of India's UIDAI, which is also called as the Aadhaar Initiative in 2017. He received the Lifetime Achievement Award from ENY CNBC TV 18, conferred him the India Business Leader Award for Outstanding Contributor to the Indian Economy 2017. And he also received the 22nd Nikkei Asia Prize for Economic and Business Innovation 2017. He's been inducted as International Honorary Member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2019. Mr. Nandan Nilekani is the author of Imagining India and co-authored his second book with Viral Shah, which is incidentally called Rebooting India, Realizing a Billion Aspirations. Delighted to see how beautifully the title of that book resonates with the theme of our annual conference, which coincidentally happens to be Rebooting Quality for Competitive India. Please join me with no further ado to welcome Mr. Nilekani for his virtual address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's really a great pleasure and honor for me today to be addressing the Indian Society for Quality's annual conference on rebooting quality for competitive India. I have had the opportunity to work on quality for many years, and I'm really delighted that in this post-pandemic era, quality and the need to have quality in everything we do is gaining resurgence. Let me speak about my experience both in the public and the private sector, because I've had the opportunity, apart from my role at Infosys, to also have been in the government for 5 years leading the Aadhaar project. So let me speak about the public role. So I joined the government in 2009 and for 5 years worked on building the unique identity project called Aadhaar. And the goal was an ambitious goal, which was to give digital identity to 1 billion people. And when I stepped down from this job in 2014, 600 million people had got the identity. And subsequently, when Prime Minister Modi came in, he also took the idea forward in a very enthusiastic way. And today, 1.3 billion people have a digital identity, which they use for every aspect of their life. So what I learned was that when you're trying to build such public systems, you have to have quality at the essence of everything you do, because billion people are going to use something. And if there's even a small defect or something goes wrong in the technology or the software that you provide, then it affects a billion people. And therefore, having very, very high quality in public systems is very, very important. And that was our plan. The second important thing was scalability, to make sure that things scale up without loss of performance and things work exactly as it is. And today the Aadhaar system is designed for scale up. It does about 50 million authentications a day, which means 50 million times in a single day, somebody is using his Aadhaar number to do an online verification of their identity. And it does 5 million electronic KYCs a day, which means 5 million times every day, somebody is using his Aadhaar number, his or her Aadhaar number, to open a bank account, buy a mobile connection, or open a mutual fund or whatever. So these are all about building for scale. And it is also about building for speed, because when you're designing for public systems, you must have momentum behind you so that you get it done quickly. And we designed this system to do 1.5 million enrollments per day without having any issues. And the way that was done was by actually providing the software for enrollment, and the software for enrollment enforced the quality at every touch point so that people could enroll smoothly. And subsequently, I was involved with many other systems in the public sector. I am currently an advisor to the NPCI, the National Payment Corporation of India, and they have come out with the amazing payment system called Bheem UPI, which is a state-of-the-art mobile-to-mobile payment system. This system was conceived about 8 years back and was launched in May of 2016. And by October of 2016, the system was doing 100,000 transactions a month. So it was very nascent in 2016. And subsequently, after the demonetization of certain currency notes, there was a dramatic growth in UPI. And today, UPI does over 4 billion transactions a month, whose aggregate value is over $100 billion. So this has been another spectacular success. Again, the credit goes entirely to NPCI, which built a very high volume, highly scalable architecture to have real-time transactions with minimal challenges. We also, when we were in the Aadhaar, we built the world's largest cash transfer system, the DBT, and 700 million bank accounts are linked to their Aadhaar number. And that is the base on which the government deposits money into people's accounts. And this was something which was very, very powerful during the pandemic, when many people were without income, and the government took a decision to give emergency funding to millions of Indians who are vulnerable. And they were able to do that very quickly because they could use the Aadhaar DBT and credit the money into their bank accounts. Similarly, while we did the credit, we also built something called as a micro ATM, which is an Aadhaar-enabled payment system, which allowed you to take a smartphone with a biometric device, and by doing an Aadhaar authentication, somebody could withdraw money from their bank account. And today, that system allows people in villages to withdraw money from their bank account just by going to a neighborhood business correspondent or Kirana store. And that system alone does 90 million transactions a month and withdrawals of 25,000 crores a month by people who receive money into the bank account, either through a government benefit or through a remittance from their spouse or family member in the city. So all these are examples of how you have to build large-scale systems. And these systems have to be designed for scale, they have to be designed for speed, they have to be designed to be reliable, because people's lives depend on these systems being reliable. So high quality is required in the construction of these systems. And when your volume goes up, they should not slow down. They should continue to give a very low 1 or 2 second response time. And all this requires huge amounts of quality to be built in. And one of the things we learned was to make a system really of high quality, you try to move the sophistication behind and make the user interaction as simple as possible. And this is a design principle that applies whether it's a government system or a corporate system, that move the sophistication and complexity behind the scenes and make the user interface as simple as possible. And you experience that today with your smartphones. When you use your iPhone or your Android phone, you're able to do so many things with just one tap. But behind that is very sophisticated cloud technology, big data technology, AI technology, and all that. But all that is hidden from you, and you're able to do everything with one tap. And that was also the philosophy we had in the design of all these public systems. So today, India is a country which has a wide array of platforms, which is very, very unusual in the world, where these platforms are public platforms built for people and built in an inclusive way. So we have the Aadhaar system, which is used for identity and KYC, the Aadhaar link DBT and AEPS, which allows you to transfer money to people's bank account and withdraw it. You have the UPI payment system, which allows you to pay anything instantly. And today, when I walk around Bangalore, I see even the vegetable vendor or the coconut vendor on the street accepting Aadhaar payments, accepting UPI payments. So that shows the kind of inclusion that has happened with this payment system. Now, the other important thing which was also developed as part of this, which is helping in quality and productivity, was the FASTag system. So about 11 years back, I was requested by then Minister Kamal Nath to design a system to ensure that there was a smooth payment of electronic tolls. And that led to a design of an RFID-based system, which we submitted to the government in 2010, when I was in the government at that time. And that system today has become the FASTag system, which all of you would have used. And essentially, FASTag system was essentially an RFID tag, which is put on a vehicle, either a car or a truck. And when you pass through a toll gate, there is a reader which reads that thing, reads the tag, and then attached to your RFID tag is a payment instrument like a wallet or a bank account, and it automatically debits the toll from that payment, from that wallet. So this is a system, again, that has had huge impacts on quality and productivity, because instead of standing in long lines at a toll booth to make payment, now you can just drive to the toll booth. So it reduces the amount of time that your bus or truck or cars waits on the highways. I myself have experienced this when I go from Bangalore to Coimbatore. I save at least half an hour to 40 minutes because on the several tolls on the highway, I'm able to drive through smoothly because of FASTag. Again, FASTag is a system which has done very well. It does about over 200 million transactions a month. And the collections in FASTag, to the credit of the Ministry of Road Transport and NPCI, which run this, is 100 crores a day. So 100 crores a day is collected through FASTag. Again, this is important because apart from the productivity and quality benefit for people driving through, it also makes sure that the revenue on these tolls is accurately captured, that there is no leakage. And because we are getting our roads built through BOT contracts, making sure that the revenue is accurately captured is very important for the return on investment on the BOT. And therefore, having these kind of systems actually encourages more private capital to come in and do roads on a BOT basis, because there's a confidence that the revenue collection is accurate. This again is an example of a population scale system. The latest thing happening in this space is what is called as the account aggregator system. And account aggregator system is something which has been launched by the RBI, which allows individuals and companies to use their own data for their benefit. So instead of data being centralized in a corporate or in the government, now individual businesses and companies can use their own data and use that to get a loan or to get access to wealth management product or whatever. And this is again transformational. And India is the only country in the world which has the ability to do this account aggregation and data empowerment. And we think this is transformational in many ways. So India, in short, has been a leader in public digital systems, and whether it is Aadhaar, DBT, UPI, account aggregator, or tax systems like income tax and GST, which are fully automated. The healthcare system, now we have the NHA working on the Ayushman Bharat digital mission to make sure that electronic health records are available to everybody and freely portable. We have education, where government has launched the Diksha program, again, very, very useful during the pandemic, that allowed online learning, QR code-based learning, and played a big role in addressing the education deficit during the pandemic. We have skills. People are looking at how to do skills in a better way so that you can carry your skills certificate. So I think there's a whole set of public infrastructure which is coming up, which I think is very, very important. Now, let me switch to my experience on the private side, working in Infosys and in the IT industry. Now, the IT industry has been at the forefront of quality movement. I remember in the early 90s, we implemented the ISO 9001 quality systems in our software development. And that proved very useful in getting international credibility and business. And then we had the whole something called the capability maturity model, which came out of Carnegie Mellon University. And CMM level 5 was considered the highest level of maturity in software development. And that again was a certification which Indian companies did. And that again gave them the sort of credibility and the brand globally as companies began to realize that Indian companies like Infosys were at the forefront of the quality movement. And then we had the Malcolm Baldrige framework, which is a way to actually that came out of Carnegie Mellon, which allowed you to which gave you a framework in which you assess yourself. And again, this is a framework embraced by Indian companies in a big way several years back. But today, when we look at the quality movement, there are a lot of new things happening. We are living in a world which is much more complex. We are living in a world which is changing very rapidly. We have seen what has happened to us during the pandemic. We have had to respond to new opportunities, new threats. And therefore, the word today in quality is actually agility. How do you make organizations more agile and being able to respond very, very quickly to a rapidly changing environment? And therefore, agility is the name of the game. And the key to agility is optionality, which is how do you, instead of planning your systems to do A or B, you have to plan your systems to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but let me make it agile enough. So whether A happens or B happens, I am prepared for that. An example is the networks that companies like Infosys had. They were designed to work from anywhere because even before the pandemic, people could work from home. They were designed to be secure so that even if you work from home, there was no cyber security risk. And they were designed to work from all kinds of devices, be it laptops, desktops, or mobile phones. Now, this was not something done because of the pandemic. This was done to make sure that the companies were flexible and agile in the way they work and gave the freedom to their employees to work from home when it suited them. But they were designed on the principle that maybe 5-10% of the people would work from home on any given day. But what the pandemic did was suddenly it forced everyone to work from home. So in a matter of weeks, 2-3 weeks, companies like Infosys had to pivot and start working from home at scale. So imagine that at Infosys, for example, there are 250,000 plus employees in 40 countries. And in a matter of weeks, these people had to work from home with the good response time in a secure manner, being able to log on to every application that was there, which they got in the corporate office. And they were able to do that because of the investment in infrastructure. Of course, there had to be certain extra investment made because pre-pandemic, the assumption was that maybe 10% of the people would work from home. But post-pandemic, it was 100%. So obviously, there had to be some scale-up investments. But companies did that and therefore built this extremely agile infrastructure, which allowed everyone to work from home. And that work from home has been going on now for 18 months and is likely to be, at least in some level, there even going forward because of new variants like Omicron and so on. So that is a good example of agility. So agility is about being able to, have a situation where something unexpected happens and still being able to respond to that. Now, the unexpected thing can be a threat or an opportunity. The pandemic was a threat, which required you to change your whole thing and be able to operate. But today, for example, the fact that the pandemic also created digital acceleration, where every company in the world realized that if they're going to be successful and vibrant, they have to be digital, has actually become an opportunity. So, your business model or your company's agility is both a function of how you deal with threats and how you deal with opportunities. So when you have a threat, you have to have agile enough to be able to deal with that threat and de-risk that threat. And when there's an opportunity, you have to be agile enough to reorganize and get your whole thing together to take advantage of opportunity. And you have to do that very, very quickly. So agility is also about speed and responsiveness and being able to reconfigure your company to do that. At the same time, there are many, many predictable activities in a company. Those can be made repeatable and automated. And one of the big things in quality today is automation. Because if you're able to eliminate that work, then there's no need to worry about what is the quality of the work, because the work itself has got removed from the value chain. And therefore, making that happen is very important. And we need to be able to look at, so big part of the quality is actually how do we make sure we don't need to do those things in the first place. This could mean re-engineering the value chain, removing activities that are not value addition, automating other activities, streamlining the whole thing. And today automation has become very, very powerful because the tools for automation and the use of things like AI for automation are becoming very powerful. And therefore, when you think of quality, we should not only think about improving the quality of existing processes. We have to ask a fundamental question: why do we do this at all? What is the value addition of this step? How do we do business process re-engineering to eliminate non-value added activities? How do we then look at the activities that are absolutely have to be performed, and how do we automate them so we don't need human intervention? And therefore, people can focus only on things like customer empathy, customer delight, and dealing with very, very sophisticated edge conditions, which cannot be met through automation. And therefore, we have to think of quality as a way, as not just about existing processes, but about reimagining the way that you do things. And that is really the future of the quality movement. And the good news is that today's technology has made it possible. If you look at the revolution of technology in the last several years, it's been dramatic. Before 2007, technology was driven by the enterprise. So what businesses chose to do, consumers followed. But after 2007, with the introduction of the iPhone and then the Android phone, consumer technology is now driven by consumer. Technology is driven by consumer applications, and therefore businesses have to now follow the leadership of what consumer applications are doing. This includes, for example, what we call as the consumerization of the user experience. So every employee or worker in your company has a smartphone and is used to the ease of use of his smartphone. And when he or she uses the enterprise application, they want the same level of ease of use. So old clunky applications will not be adopted by our workers, and therefore we have to do that. We have to use the cloud more often. All these large platforms we use are all somewhere on the cloud, either a private cloud or a public cloud, and therefore we have to use the cloud more effectively, and we are seeing that change happening. We have to use big data and analytics and AI, because today data is becoming real time, and the number of data points that are being recorded, what's called as the instrumentation of data, has gone up through the roof. And that is generating massive amounts of data. Fortunately, the technology has also evolved that this data can be stored, it can be managed, it can be analyzed, and you can get insights into that. And that's related to the automation thing, because if you're able to get insights in real time, then many of the answers, for example, can be automated, leaving only the most sophisticated end conditions for human beings to answer. And so that's another thing which is happening. Then the big challenge for companies is cybersecurity, because today, as we expose more and more systems to the internet, there's a huge global cyber challenge. Countries are doing cyber attacks, companies are doing, there's ransomware going on. And you always have to companies have to keep one step ahead of the people trying to enter your vulnerable system and make sure that you're fully secure. So cyber security has become very, very important. And many of these things were already happening. So in the period from maybe 2013, 14 to 2019, all these trends were happening. The use of big data, AI, analytics, the use of the cloud, the use of consumer user experience, modernization of system, platform thinking, cyber was all happening. But what the pandemic did was essentially make this inevitable, because everybody realized that the companies had to be technologically, digitally savvy and allow the consumers to be able to operate even without physical presence. If you look at the retailing industry, you see a very sharp divide. There were many companies that had not figured out how to sell online and were only selling through physical stores. And when customers stopped coming to the physical stores, these companies actually went bankrupt. They are all very big names. At the same time, there were companies that had set up what's called as omni-channel retail, where you could buy in the store or buy online, that you could deliver to the house, or you could go to the store and pick it up, or you could go to the curbside of the shop and pick it up. And these people flourished, people like Target, Walmart, Lowe, and Home Depot. And so this ability to have a very flexible system became very, very important. And today around the world, companies are looking at that. So I believe that it's very important. Again, let me end by saying that I am a strong believer in the quality movement. I think it has gone through many, many iterations in the last 30 to 40 years. And it equally applies to society. We have to build systems for society which are very, very high quality, high reliability, low transaction costs, low response time. And when we build for companies, we have to make them incredibly agile and be able to roll with the punches, deal with the threats as well as take advantage of opportunities. So once again, I'm very, very grateful to you to have been given a chance to give a keynote at this Indian Society for Quality Annual Conference 2021. And I wish you all the best as you pursue your quality journey. Thank you very much.
One more big round of applause for it to reach Bengaluru, please. Thank you. All right.